This is Rachel Howzell Hall, and you should be watching the Crew Reviews.
Tonight of the show, we have Rachel Howzell Hall. Rachel, welcome to the Crew Reviews.
Howdy.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. I wish it's only 1:34 here in Los Angeles, so I can't have a drink.
It's only 2:30 here in Denver. Come on, man.
That's true. Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Yeah,
if I had a Bloody Mary, that would, I miss those. I haven't had one of those in 2 weeks.
What?
I need to change that.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Well, we always said that the vibe of this show is met your favorite author at a bar, which is generally why we do that. But the West Coasters, we often get, it's too early for me to drink, so I'm going to just toast you with water.
Yeah.
But either way, we're toasting you, and that's enough. Well, as I said, welcome to the show, and it's been a long time coming. We got to first chat with you a little bit on the night of 1,000 authors, and now we finally get to talk in depth because that was
that was what, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and then
maybe
999 other authors.
I'm out.
That was cool though.
Yeah.
Well, let's start out by having you kind of give our audience a little bit of what they can expect from these toxic things.
These toxic things.
Yeah.
It was formally published a week ago today on the 1st of September, and it feels like it's been a thousand nights. I'm so excited with this book because it's a story that focuses on this cool digital archaeologist. Her name is Mcmillan, and she has a hella cool job where she curates the memories of her clients through using, technology, something like an Alexa device where she uploads pictures and a narrative that she writes into this one little box. And you say, hey, memory box, tell me about my honeymoon in Niagara Falls. And this box will spit back these memories. Well, she's working on the box for Nadia Denham, who is the owner of a curio store here in Los Angeles. And Nadia, before Mickey can even really get started on this project, she winds up dead. And no one knows right now, at first off, if it's, suicide or if it's murder,
Right.
No matter for Nikki, because she wants to finish this project with 12 special things that Nadia wanted to remember. The problem is there's something weird about these 12 things, and discovering what those 12 things, that helps me when I get up every morning to write at 4, discovering those 12 things and tying the story in and the illustrations and all the plots and everything, that excited me the most. And I am so excited about this book and happy that people are reading it and like it.
Yeah, they do.
Well, that's actually a perfect kind of lead into my next question. So the natural tendency when reading a book in this particular genre, for me at least, is to try to guess what's going to happen next. And I will tell you that without exception, I failed in this regard right up to the end of the novel. Before you started typing your first words, how much of this Gordian knot that you delivered was already in your head?
Well, when I actually wrote my first lines, because I write my first drafts longhand, I did know that I wanted the ending that I wanted. I knew that I wanted to feature things that belong to women. I wanted Mickey to be young and protected. And of course, I wanted it to be a Los Angeles story.
Yeah.
All the rest of it, I discovered as, I scribbled across the page with my, my fancy pens, my fancy colored pens. But as writers, we collect ideas and we collect plot lines. We're like, and I say this all the time, we're like magicians who go and look at other magicians' work and try and figure out what that trick is so that they can take that trick, perfect it, and make it theirs. And that's what I do with my writing, like we all do.
Yeah.
And I read several books that had ideas that I liked and tricks that I wanted to try. And this book, it was time for it. I learned how to write. It took me, moments from the Lou Norton stories onward to, They All Fall Down and Now She's Gone, to even feel bold and strong enough and smart enough to even attempt something like this with all the disparate storylines and the vignettes and all of it. It's this book took all of my talents and all my not strength necessarily, but kind of resolve to just see it through, because at times it did get confusing. At times it did get overwhelming, because I really, really wanted to tell these stories in a way that hadn't really been told before.
Ooh, and it worked.
So I find it so, I believe it, but I'm glad that other people get it when I like when I succeed and it's an earned success.
Right.
I don't like cheap tricks. I don't want to make things twisty for the sake of it. I find life to be very twisted and twisty and like onions, from the layers to, moments where you uncontrollably cry. And I want to reflect all that in my stories. And I want them to be organic in their reveals.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned before, Nadia, is that your victim is, murdered or kind of dies, and we're not really sure. And so there's this small collection of objects that are kind of left behind as evidence of her existence. Mm-hmm. And for me, there was a kind of immediate sadness about that. There's so little to explain her entire existence. And then I got to thinking about, what do I have as a story? And I kind of got freaked out a little bit, thinking how little there was in my own personal life that would show my existence. Did you have any reflection like that?
That's exactly what, excited me and saddened me. And as earlier in the summer, I created a few promotional toxic things boxes that had like these items randomly in like the little treasure box or jewelry boxes. And I'd gone around all like so many thrift stores and the flea markets around Los Angeles. And it was remarkable and sad to me, just why do I have this cache of letters that someone wrote someone, or this cache of postcards and these earrings? And I mean, yes, we're all composed of personality traits and talents and all the rest of it, but sometimes things define us. And, unfortunately, when folks die, we fight over things, not because of that thing, but because of what they represent to us. Yeah. My husband always, when he grew up with one of his grandfathers collected the Lionel trains, the big train sets.
Yeah, sure.
And he was disappointed when he didn't inherit that, because it brought back memories of that time with his grandfather. And so, it's sad, because, what represents you? What will be left behind for someone to pick up and say, oh yeah, I remember when, or, oh yeah, that was his favorite this. And I wanted to reflect that not only in the items that Nadia has left behind, but even in Mickey's relationship with her mother. As you noticed, Mickey's constantly borrowing things from her mom. She is an amalgamation of designer clothes and attitude and all the rest of it. And she's still, as a 24-year-old, she's still being added to. Her mom is still, and parents, her dad too, they're still adding things to her to make her who she will be, the next day.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad you said that, because I find it fascinating and sad. Right. And as I was writing this during, the height of the very start of the pandemic, and this was the time when we were all kind of like doing projects.
Yeah, cleaning out the closets.
Yeah, cleaning out closets. And, oh, I remember this. Oh, I remember that. And then some things you're like remembering, something, and your sibling or your mother or someone else says, that's not how that happened. And I actually hated that trip to the Bahamas because this thing happened. So, everyone has different memories and have different visceral reactions when they see things. So I wanted all of that in this story.
Yeah, that's good. You got me on that.
Yeah, I connected with it too, because my wife will tell you I'm a bit of a pack rat, not because I want to have a bunch of things, but just because, like, especially we have 4 children, and anything that is even tangentially related to a memory of one of my children, I have the hardest time getting rid of. If there's a garage sale or taking stuff to Goodwill or whatever, I'm just like always going, oh, okay. And I mean, it's always tough for me. So that part really connected with me.
I grew up and we lived in apartments, and there were 4 kids of us. And my mom, she really tried to hold on to stuff. Like I remember flipping through my baby book, but I don't know where those things are, because we moved from apartment to apartment at one point so many times that every time you move, you leave things behind, or you say, I don't really need that. And to my mom, that may have meant, something like my junior high school program for the pinning ceremony or something.
Yeah.
For me, not seeing that, it's like, well, that was a big moment in my life. Why didn't you keep that thing? So
I get it.
Well, going a little deeper than the actual items, reading this novel, I was kind of drawn into so many meditations or reflections, I guess you'd say, on family, on identity, on what we think we know to be true in this world versus what actually is true. Was there something specific, an occurrence or something that really drew you to these themes for this story?
No, these themes always kind of stayed with me. Just growing up, and I have a large family, and even beyond my immediate family, I have a large family. Just on my dad's side, there were 8 kids. So everyone has memories of this thing happening as opposed to that thing, misunderstandings, grudges held for years and years and years because I remember something differently than you. So I've always thought about that and the sadness that's surrounding memories and what stories we choose to tell. I've found that, especially as I get older, those stories that had been refused to be told are coming to the surface. No matter how many times how much you want to tamp down something, it comes out. All truth comes to light. It's just a matter of time. And as a member of Gen X and the sandwich generation, we are actively, learning our parents' secrets, while also as a parent, kind of curating our own secrets or just withholding information from our kids. So it's constantly with me, that kind of push-pull of how much to reveal, how much to hold back until that person's okay or in a mental state where they can accept what the actual truth is and what this thing represents, what this ring or this, blanket or any object that is a talisman of your life, what it really means.
Yeah.
As you were writing this longhand on your pad of paper, and kind of delving into the story, did you go down any rabbit holes of, I wonder what that really was happening here? I mean, did you like remember things in your own past and like sort of question your perception versus the reality of it?
Flip it, and that would be it. I was thinking about some things, some family things that had come to light. And that's how usually, and it's upsetting sometimes.
Yeah.
And writing is how I deal with, trauma, tragedy, being pissed off about something. I take to my pen. As a kid, I kept a diary up until I think my second year out of college. I kept diaries. So I wrote. I didn't talk much. I was an observer. Surprise, surprise. And the things that bothered me, I take it. I wouldn't talk about it, and then I go write about it. As I got older and learned what story was, I turned those things into story. So these toxic things, as well as all my other stuff, it's actually me trying to work some things out. It's my therapy. Yeah.
Wow. So if we read your journals, we would pick up some of these pieces.
Oh yeah.
There, right?
Definitely. This was the first story, though, that I didn't center myself in the story. Mickey is much younger than I am. I'm 51. Mickey is 24. 51. And I saw myself more as Corey, as her mom, and Mickey as my daughter and my oldest niece, and just how they're lovely young women. I call them dolphins. Their personalities are like dolphins, who are very friendly and outgoing, and they know how to perform and put on. And sometimes, as much as you want, you can't protect them. And you want to tell them, don't be so friendly to everyone. Don't lead everyone to safety, because they, it's that. And so this is a story of me fearing, not necessarily fearing for my daughter, but introducing her to the world.
Right.
And I've shared all the wonderful things that life offers, but as she knows, there's some awful things too. And, I dedicated the book to her because, she's my beautiful girl, and things happen to beautiful girls all the time. And she's grown up with a mom who writes crime. So that was a remarkable.
But it's mom. So, come on.
Yeah. It's like, don't do that. One of my first things with helping her understand story when she was little, we'd drive by like a car accident or something where there's sirens, where there are lights swirling. And as I drove past, I'd ask her, tell me a story. What just happened there? And so we'd spin these stories about, whatever weird, random, tragic, violent thing that happened. And one, we're in traffic, so anything to keep her entertained that wasn't her music, but also, just introducing her to the unexpectedness of life, things just randomly happening, and also, learn how to tell a story.
Right.
That's coming in handy now as she's doing we're in college application land right now.
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
I'm in the same boat.
Oh Lord, I created a spreadsheet Sunday because it was just all too much. It's like, well, who's getting what essay? What school is this? Early action? Things have changed since 1987 when I applied to college.
Is she 16?
She's 17.
17, okay, because I have a 16-year-old. Mike, you is 16 or 15?
16, yep.
Okay. So we all have one in that wheelhouse. That's my.
I just want her to do it, and us to like hopefully turn everything in this week so she can actually like focus on learning.
Right.
All the AP classes and 2 soccer teams and all that. I want her to kind of focus. It's already hard. So
we're in the same boat.
Yeah.
We've talked to an entire array of authors, from new to debut to established to legitimate legends in the industry. And everyone always seems to have a slightly different take on the back end of publishing, the kind of the non-writing portion of your career. So are you the type of person that tracks all the numbers and gets in the weeds with the demographics and sales figures, or where do you fall in that kind of
I used to be, but I find that like this past week that I have had to kind of log off from all that, because I've been at this. My first book was published September 11th, 2002.
Oof.
So I've been at this for a long time, and I've met with some small success, and I've met with, obstacles, constant obstacles.
Yeah.
And so now, I worry sometimes that, am I doing enough? What are the numbers saying? What's my ranking? What more can I do? And I find myself just driving myself crazy and spiraling and unable to sleep. And, we're neurotic writers. We think
Yeah.
about these
Yeah.
things.
Right.
And
Have to
I'm
be.
with, this book is my first with Thomas and Mercer. And,
Right.
they're data machine, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And while it's wonderful that I have access to some of that data, it's it can be awful because I'm actually looking at these numbers and it's like, is that enough? Are
I
they
know.
happy with me?
Right.
And so the book came out on Wednesday. By Friday, I had to tap out because this is just too much. I didn't feel comfortable writing the next story. Well, not the story that's coming out next year, but the next one that I need to
Yeah.
actually write, because can I do it? Do I still have it? Should I just kind of give up? I found myself going into that spiral. And so I said, yeah, let me log off of that. Let me log off of that. Close that that X, and I tapped out because I realized that this wasn't healthy for me. Some people can handle it. I can't.
Yeah.
And just now I'm brave enough to admit that I can't deal with it.
Right. Because you don't want it affecting your actual creativity, because
Right.
you might decide that, well, the way I'm doing things now doesn't look like it's working based on this spreadsheet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a dangerous place. I mean,
Yeah.
I love writing. As I mentioned, I find it to be therapeutic, and I find it to be like one of the few things I can do.
Yeah.
So it's not, it doesn't help me to lose confidence. I mean, my day job, I'm a writer for a big
Yeah.
medical center out here. And so when I'm going into that space, I need to feel confident that I can ghostwrite this executive communication. I can tell patients what COVID is and what mRNA is and all this other stuff. So
Right.
I need to be in a situation where I, don't feel like I feel anytime I have to do math.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, and I'm sure you know this among your own writing community friends, but we've had roughly 100 authors in this show, and every single one of them has that exact imposter syndrome, or is this my last book? Was that my last book? Am I? Mark Graney said every time he writes a book, he's halfway in and he says, I guess
my last one
was my last book. I don't have it.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, I don't think anybody we've had on the show has not had that feeling.
I don't think so.
I guess that's why we write.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure. Well, you're kind of a self-professed quiet person. All right. But you're
a
obviously
socialized hermit.
So the numbers aside and all that sort of thing, do you, how much do you enjoy the promotional side, like doing this and the social media? Do you dread it? Does it become a chore, or is this kind of like your outlet to talk to like-minded folks that kind of get it a little bit?
It's weird. I like it. I worry beforehand because it's like, well, I don't have anything interesting to say.
No, not
I hope I don't sound stupid. So there's some worry there. I do like saying yes to things because I remember back, in 2002 in 2003 to 2013, when no one asked me to do anything.
Right.
When I was trying to get to the point where I am now. And so I'm always thankful. And I try when I do social media and when I do interviews and, talk at when we used to have events back in the day.
Yeah.
You remember those days? To be honest about my journey and how I've arrived here. today.
Yeah.
So I like it. I fear it.
We are kind of
But
scared.
again, I know I'm not alone in that at
No,
all.
I think we're all in the same boat.
But seriously, I'm very grateful and thankful that I'm asked to do things, and I try and say yes as much as I can. When I say
Yeah.
no, that must mean I really can't do something,
Yeah.
because I do try and say yes, because, you know, one day someone's not going to ask me to do jack, and that will be
Remember me when?
somebody. Hello.
Well, while we are going to promote the heck out of this book, we also, especially when somebody comes on for the first time, we like to talk about their entire career and everything that got them here. And you have a terrific series featuring Eloise Lou Norton, who's an African-American female homicide detective. It's a perspective rarely seen in fiction, and one we need more of, not just in fiction, but frankly in real life.
Yeah.
Your last 3 books, though, have been standalones. Are we going to ever revisit Lou in the future, hopefully, or have you already told the stories you want to tell with that character?
The wonderful thing about crime fiction is, and unfortunately, there's so many stories to tell. There's so much material. And I do hope to get back to Lou. I don't know how that will happen. It'll probably happen when Hollywood finally decides to move beyond an option and say, hey, let's actually make this into a thing.
Yeah.
So I hope to, but until then, I am having a lot of fun in standalone land. These could be loose stories in some ways, but they would hit different.
For sure.
These women aren't as savvy and strong and smart and resourceful as Lou. And I like hopping in these different heads and in these different experiences. And again, there's so many stories I want to get to. It's just a matter of, what that will be. And, you're always trying to hit past what you did the last time, and you don't want to, repeat that same trick in that same way. So that's the challenge for me. It's like, well, what do I do next? But, fortunately, again, there are lots of things that people do to each other that are horrifying, but make for great crime novels.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because as a reader, I love both. I love the excitement of a standalone. I love the fact that you don't have to keep anybody alive, so it's very unpredictable. But I also love series, and in fact, of your books, one that I'm kind of crossing my fingers on is Grayson Sykes. I think she's a great character as well.
Thank you. I loved Grayson, and I loved that story. That story is like 2 stories in one, right? And the domestic abuse story, part of that was actually the second novel that I was trying to sell, but did not. And that's, one thing I want to say to any young writers out there. It's like, just because you can't sell it today, or it's not working today, keep that, because eventually your brain will work it out and you will get the muscles to figure out how to tell that story. And it took me, the Lou Norton novels to figure out what a procedural is, how effective it can be. And it took me to write They All Fall Down to feel brave enough to do a standalone. And then, I got to mesh them together. But yeah, Grayson is incredible, and there's so much potential there. But again, it's like, ooh, squirrel, what's that there?
But I think there's a great lesson.
I'm kind of scared off of serials in some ways, because for me, my numbers, it's always the numbers. My numbers weren't hitting satisfactory for my publisher. And so it's like, well, I'll move on and I won't do that again. And that's sad, because Grayson, she would make a great series character, I think.
Right.
I think you said something very important. There's a lesson that I think we have a lot of writers on our show, and it's throw nothing away. Something that you have that doesn't work, do not throw it away, because you never know when it's going to come back. And we've had a couple authors on here who didn't have as much sales success with their early books, then hit one with a later book that then brought interest back into their earlier books, and suddenly people started buying their back catalog, and then the publisher was like, hey, Do another book.
How about
Yeah.
Let's cross our fingers for that. So
Yeah. No, that's the wonderful thing about books. They don't expire.
right.
Right.
If anything, there's an upswelling of interest again once you, I'm thinking about Andrea Bartz, who just was, her book just came out a few weeks ago. We Were Never Here or something like that.
Yep.
Anyway, it got picked up by Reese's Book Club.
Wow.
And this was a shock to her and she wrote about this on Twitter yesterday. Her publisher had been, disappointed with the numbers. Her last book was supposed to be her breakout book, and it didn't happen. And so, this book that was just, picked up by Reese's Book Club, she got paid less to write it. So, you just never know. Our job is just to write and to tell the truth. And then, hope that you get paid for it and you get some promotion for it. But, I do this for free, and I have done it for free because I love it so much. I look forward to getting up at 4:40 every morning to write. It's what I'm supposed to do.
Not me, man. You've shown up, with all these wonderful works, you've shown up on a number of really important lists: ITW awards, Left awards, LA Time book finalist. What do those moments of recognition mean to you at a personal level?
It means that someone's getting what I'm doing. And it means that I'm not a complete mess up. That I have to remember that I'm getting these things not just because I'm nice. And I tend to think that it's like, oh, they just did that because they want me to feel good. No, this is a business.
Yeah.
I forget that because my day job is nothing but relationships. I'm a fundraising writer, and you get those big gifts by the way you make that donor feel. And so I carry that into my writing life. It's like, oh, I must have just, they feel sorry for me.
No.
The LA Times, give her a nomination.
Yeah, no, there's not a lot of sorrow going on there.
But it feels good. It took me a while to get my first nomination was actually last year, 2020.
No, seriously?
Yeah, the Left Coast Crime. That was my very first time being nominated for an award. And that it was bizarre because, it was also my first time being guest of honor anywhere. And that was,
isn't that crazy?
That conference happened on the week the world shut down. So I did, I didn't get to actually be a guest of honor. I think I got to vote for me for the Lefty, but it was just a bizarre thing. But it's still, I feel like I am now being recognized for the stuff that I write and the way I write, because, I tend to write weird. It's like, well, what genre is that? Is that noir?
Right.
Is that thriller, suspense? I'm kind of all over the place, and my stories are not kind of what you expect. And, I got some flack for that, which is why I, wasn't published for a very long time. And so getting these bits of recognition means that, okay, people are reading it and understand it, and they want to honor me for it. So I'm thrilled. I really am. I feel when I stop and think, when my husband makes me stop and think and reflect, I have to say that, I wanted to write one book, and here I am, number 9 or 10, and nominated for all these very important things. So my next thing is to win one. I'm looking forward to that.
Why not?
Yeah, it'll be like, I'll win something on the day the asteroid actually comes and strikes the Earth, or some, my first book was published on the first anniversary of 9/11, honored on the weekend that the world shuts down for a pandemic, so
could you give us a heads up next time? Just maybe a week in advance. I could get some toilet paper.
I'm about to win something. Get some water and toilet paper.
Yeah, water and toilet paper. I want to know.
Well, actually, once again, you've kind of led right into what I wanted to talk about next. So, as you said, you didn't start out writing conventional crime mystery. You published your first novel, Quiet Storm, in 2002.
Yes.
And then the traditional publishing world, and all its wisdom, even your agent seemed to struggle figuring out what neat little box to stick you in.
Right.
And publishers largely didn't have the vision to see, and this is an important topic to bring up now because, anytime, but particularly this year, then African-American authors could do more than write so-called Black stories, which at the time were cliche-ridden, often exploited fiction that white publishers were putting out and saying, well, this is Black fiction.
Yeah.
Can you share with us a little bit about how you navigated that period without losing faith and how you kind of finally pushed your voice through?
Oh my gosh, that was awful. That all happened. And this is when you actually grow up in my 30s. And in my 30s, oh my sweet Lord. I published my first book at 32. And my husband and I, we got pregnant. And in my first month of being pregnant, first summer of being pregnant, was diagnosed with a random weird breast cancer. And the estrogen from my pregnancy was making the tumor grow. So here I am, young, 30 something, trying to have this writing career. And writing actually was the distraction from all the rejection I was experiencing at that time. I would get up and write because I needed to feel like my baby was going to be okay. I was going to be okay. If something could go wrong, let it be the writing world. So being rejected kind of drew fire away from what I was actually experiencing, the real threat to my life. But even then, I would get I think I'd get depressed. I was moving too fast and working hard. I was working at the ACLU, and it was Bush v. Gore. It's like all these things are happening outside of me that I could turn to and be mad at and be anxious about. And, I would write these stories, or by this time, my agent and I had broken up, looking for a new agent. It was constant, me just turning out these stories and being rejected, and agents and saying, we like your writing, but your story's not Black enough. But there was one agent who told me she absolutely loved what would become number 3 in the Lou Norton story, Trail of Echoes. But she already had a writer, a white woman, who said that she grew up in my neighborhood and it was a nonfiction book, and she couldn't have, 2 of those types of experiences, even though I'm Black and actually live there. But she chose the white woman who actually, and this was in the New York Times, this hit everywhere. She lied about everything, this writer. She did not grow up in the part of town where I did. She was not a gang member. She was not authentic at all. And so there were moments where my voice was thrown over and was not considered authentic enough compared to people who are actually perpetrating lies. And that was all frustrating. But, I would want to give up, and there'd be that day, that random day where I'm like, I'm done. I have to focus on my life. By this time, I'd had my daughter and she was healthy. I was still battling some cancer stuff, and I kept writing and writing, and these stories, 2 at least, I thought were great. And I thought I was going to get an agent, but I did not. And by this time, Amazon had come out with the Kindle platform. And so I self-published these 2 novels, The View from Here and No One Knows You're Here. And what that did, in addition to keeping me sane and serving as my therapy, it helped me get closer to what it was I wanted to write, and that was crime fiction. My first book was psychological suspense literary fiction. There was a body, but it was upmarket, or whatever that term is. But it wasn't true crime. And everything that I was experiencing, that fear, that instability, thinking about my own mortality, if my daughter was going to survive all my surgeries, all of that helped feed these stories I was telling. It infused my stories with realism and true fear, and every emotion that I went through found its way into these stories. And I said at one point, after another appointment at UCLA, where they're like, yeah, we don't like these precancerous calcifications, let's put you in, in the high risk program. That was when I'm like, well, I may die. So what is it that I want to do before I go? I mean, everyone does die.
Sure.
But my death, I've had multiple surgeries. My body likes making lumps. I need to figure out what it is that I want to do before I go. And that was to combine a Terry McMillan type story with a Walter Mosley Devil in the Blue Dress type story.
Yeah.
And, what the hell? I might as well. What do I have to fear? I am a cancer survivor. I'm still battling it. Now I'm about to be on tamoxifen for 5 years.
Yeah.
Why not just go ahead and write something that I really haven't seen? And that's an LAPD homicide detective who looks like me, who's come from my neighborhood, solving crime. And so I wrote Land of Shadows, not giving a damn if it was accepted or not. I wanted to write this story before I left. And so I did. And a wonderful agent in San Diego, Jill Marshall, she read it and she's like, I want to sign you. And we found an incredible young editor at Forge who wanted this book too. I mean, there's been some rejections, some editors who I wanted to work with were like, this is nothing special, which is a lie, because how many Black LAPD homicide detective books are there?
1, 2.
But yeah, exactly. There's Paula Woods, who wrote the wonderful Charlotte Justice stories. And there were some amateur sleuth books like the Barbara Neely series.
Yeah, all right.
And Valerie Wilson Wesley stories, which were all East Coast and older women, and they weren't cops. So, and we sold it. And then they bought another, and then 2 more. And then James Patterson, out of the blue on a Friday, contacts my agent wanting to write a story with you. So, all that to say, young writers, don't give up. It's been 20 years from me. And, yes, would I have wanted it quicker? Yes. But if it's not happening quickly, pay attention to what's going on in your surroundings. Take notes. Remember how you feel, the sadness, the hope. Remember all of that and put it all into your writing, because that's our job, to write honestly and raw sometimes, that people can feel it coming off the page.
Sure.
So long story short, writing's been great.
Well, and I guess kind of riffing off that a little bit, I mean, you just mentioned, and we all know this pretty much fact, the genre where you're at, crime, thriller, suspense, mystery, all that, it was and has been a white male dominated, environment. But your cancer diagnosis seems to have given you something a little extra to kind of kick through all of that. And so do you look at your health and that health scare that you had as maybe that was the cannon shot that knocked it out of the park to kind of put you where you're at today?
Yeah, that is the whole excuse. The term is the fuck it.
Yeah,
might as well. And that's what it's the inciting point where you're kind of shaken out of your kind of funk and depression, and you strike out and start your own hero's journey, right?
Yeah.
While I wish that it hadn't, happened to me.
Yeah, of course.
I am grateful that I survived it and that I have this talent to write about it and to share what my experiences are and to help people who may not fear cancer, but who fear something else, to say it's going to be okay. It's whatever that end is, it'll be fine. And, get to that thing that you want to do, because no one knows how long they're here. So, I mean, who would have thought in 2019 that we'd be all shut up in our houses for a year and a half?
Yeah, right.
And no one. So yeah, get to that thing. If you need an excuse, look for something tragic to say, that happened and now I want to start this. Whatever it takes, get to that thing that needs to happen for you, so that you can be more than that, camera or chess piece that you left behind.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you ever take the time to sort of reflect upon the fact that a little African-American girl or boy might be in a bookstore and see your picture on a book and go, oh my God, this is possible. This is my perceptions are wrong, and I need to ignore all that. And do you ever think about your impact in that regard?
All the time. But then I'm like, nobody really cares. And then, I seesaw. It's weird. It's like, what I'm doing is not important. But then, I'll hear some of my friends' kids who want to be writers, and they see me and they see that it's possible. I mean, my daughter grows up saying, of course it can happen, because she sees it. She lives with it.
It's obvious for her.
Yeah, but she also sees me get up at 4:40 every morning and write, and then go to day job, and then create spreadsheets for her college application. She sees all of it, and she knows that for her, I'm modeling for her, but she knows that if she wants something, that she can do it. And if it's hard, she looks back to my life and me fighting all kinds of weird, random cancer-related things to do something that I find important. So yeah, it's weird, because one reason I wanted to write the Terry Mcmillan story and Walter Mosley story mixed up is because I hadn't seen it. I, like everybody else, I read a lot of Stephen King and Tom Clancy and Jackie Collins and Sidney Sheldon, and my neighborhoods were never in there. And now, it's like kids can say, oh, I know that street, or an adult can say, I know that KFC that she's talking about. And that makes you feel good to be seen. We all want to be seen. And that's why I write these LA stories with these, centering Black women, especially, because we want to be seen. We want to feel that someone knows exactly what we're going through, who knows, what it is to have your ear burned because of the curling iron, or, not wanting to go swimming because your hair will revert if you get in the water, those kind of stuff, which we don't get to see. So I write for me, but I also write for a whole community.
And it'd be great if that wasn't even a topic of conversation but it is, because until that's commonplace, this is the kind of thing that you have to consider, is what impact am I, you don't have to write from that perspective necessarily, right? Like you said, from your own perspective. But when we talk to you, or when we promote your books, until such time as there's no such thing as crime writers of color. It's just crime writers, and it's everybody,
or men and women for that matter.
Exactly. Men or women. Yeah, exactly.
I am looking forward to that day. But at the same time, I must say, though, I do like, I don't see, there's nothing wrong with being different. Like, I love reading, even within Black culture, like Sean Cosby's books.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Because I'm from Los Angeles. I have no idea what it is to live in Virginia. So I like reading those stories. I like reading, I just read, it was a movie. We went to see Shang-Chi, the new Marvel movie.
I haven't seen it yet, but my son just went to see it.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it, because it's like, how many times do I get to see like young Asian American kids like kicking ass and learning about what they talk about at a breakfast table? I like that stuff. we need to get to a place where it's welcomed, that it's not seen as an also as or lesser than,
Hmm.
but just as important and just as rich and exciting as, as mainstream stories.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Well, so you touched a little bit on some of the books you read, but not the books you read, but the books that influence you or the people that influence you. Were there particular authors or an author, either one, that you kind of planted a seed for you to do what you're doing right now?
Stephen King, definitely Stephen King, because if you haven't, can't tell, I love Los Angeles and I sing for Los Angeles. And growing up and reading his stories about this place called Maine,
Yeah.
and these people who live in Maine in these weird towns, the towns were as scary as, the people,
Salem's
as
Lot.
Pennywise and everything. And I liked that sense of place.
Yeah.
And I liked the way he just simply told stories without all the floof and the obvious verbal written gymnastics. It was very accessible, his tales. And so I always said to myself, as I'm learning how to write, I want to write LA stories that everyone can read, and you don't necessarily need a dictionary or a degree to understand what I'm trying to say. And I remember when he received the National Book Award finally, and how I think I was in college when that happened, and how was it Norman Mailer who made some crack about him being genre. And that's just like, well, those are my people. I didn't write my first story obviously as a crime novel, but again, there were bodies and death and the mystery, because I mean, mystery and crime and the whole genre thing, that's how we've always told stories. It's why there's 6,000 CSIs, and because that's how people learn. And so I looked to him to learn what it was to be a kid who was scared of clowns. I was scared of clowns. And how am I going to combat sewers? I'm scared of sewers. So it's like, he knew my life. He knew who I was, but everything that I was scared of, he wrote about. And so I also wanted to take that. I wanted to take those things that people are scared of and put a character in there to figure it out, because someone also is trying to figure out, like, and Now She's Gone, there are lots of women who are in dangerous relationships who are trying to figure a way out. And I wrote Gray as sort of a guide for that. So yeah, Stephen King, he helped me grow up, and he helped me face fears. And I love his stories. I really, really do.
Fantastic. Good way to finish that.
Rachel, you have survived what we call the main portion of the interview.
She survived.
The main portion. The second portion is called the lightning round, and it's basically, you're a mother, so you probably tell your kids, think before you speak. This is that portion where that's optional. You don't have to. Not quite as deep on these questions as the earlier ones. So I'm going to start.
I'm ready.
I'm actually going to ask you 4. I normally ask you 3, but I came up with another. So the first one is, an actor or actress handpicks you to write a story to be adapted for a film as a starring vehicle for them. Who is the dream person to make that request to you?
Viola Davis.
Oh, sure.
Is damn good in everything.
Yeah.
She could be in a film for 10 minutes and she's still in a film.
Yeah.
Okay. Name a guilty pleasure now or from your past, a television show or a trashy book series.
Television show. Well, it's not trashy.
Well, then don't be trashy, just a guilty pleasure.
Guilty pleasure, Golden Girls. I watch it every day. Every day. And for food, I like popcorn and red wine. I just had some last night while my daughter and husband were at soccer practice. It's like I made some popcorn with a lot of butter and a lot of salt. And yeah, that was wonderful.
Yeah.
You're a woman after my wife's heart, because that's what her and my daughter do all the time. So
yeah.
That was actually my favorite scene in Toxic Things with Mickey and Corey toward the end of the book, where Mickey's heartbroken and she and her mom are sitting on the couch with popcorn and wine, with Golden Girls talking about love.
So you're just doing research at that.
Yeah, I was going to say, so there is a little bit of you in this book.
Yes. Yes.
Right. Okay, so you mentioned you co-wrote with James Patterson. If you could choose an author from the past, maybe somebody that's dead or somebody that just doesn't write anymore, that you would love to have collaborated with, who would that be?
Toni Morrison. Her novels are horror novels, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're horror novels. And I would love to just learn again, tricks. How do you come up with these things? I just want to watch her process. And I've also admired her because there was one interview she did, and she was talking about being a writing mother. And she would write with her baby in one arm and a pencil in the other. And the baby would throw up on the page, and she'd write around it. And I'm like, yes.
You get it.
So she inspired me to do that. So yes, Toni Morrison.
Nice.
Okay, my last question before Mike takes over is early in the book, there's a great line from Mickey's thoughts while staring at Chris's Adam's apple. The line is, I want to cut it out, then nurse him back to health.
Yeah.
So my question is, how else did your husband help with this book?
That's so funny you said that, because he thinks about it all the time. When we first started dating back in '94, I had all those how-to murder books back in, you remember those, where it's like poison and weapons.
Yep.
And he'd come into my studio apartment, and he'd just like look at all this death stuff. And then, every book, in some ways, I kill him in some ways.
The Writer's Digest book club books, right?
Yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah.
Oh, that's
I read
hilarious.
that, and I immediately went upstairs and showed my wife and said, "You ever feel this way ever?"
Oh, baby.
Yeah. Last hour? Or, yeah.
One simple line, but it said so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. I love that line.
Yeah. All right. So I'm up, right? Okay. I'm going to hold up 3 objects, and I want to hear how they are connected in my soon-to-be announced murder.
Okay.
Let me just pick 3 random things. Okay. A cell phone, a hat, and a USB little memory stick. So, cell phone, memory stick, hat. How are these connected to my soon-to-be announced death?
Well, she suffocated. Well, she strangled you with the hat.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. She did that.
Okay.
And she used your thumb on your corpsey finger to open up your phone to, let's see, to make you send her a text message, to pretend that you're texting her that you want to meet her somewhere, that she's going to show up and she's going to be there, but you're not going to be there. And somehow her will, or no, your trust, your last will and testament are on that USB, and that's what she wants. And somehow she gets your now widow to hand it to her. So you're killed by, strangled by that hat.
I will say that's one of the toughest lightning round questions that I've heard on the show. So nailed it.
My mind is still going.
Just coming off your book, I was like, no, I want to know how it happened, how I do it.
How did you die?
That's awesome. Okay. That's my favorite lightning round answer.
Freaking visors. They are dangerous.
Sure. Well, no, it comes undone. Good around my throat. Sure. I get it. Okay. So number 2, you're behind the wheel. Who is your literary ride or die partner in that front passenger seat?
I would say, that's a good one. I would say, I don't know. I will say mostly, only because I talk to Walter a lot, and he's very astute, and he sees things totally different from me because he's an older biracial man who grew up on the other side of Los Angeles.
Okay.
And we think something similarly, but then he says something weird way over there, and it kind of makes sense. So I would say Walter Mosley,
Okay.
just because I want to see how he sees that thing that I think is so easy to understand.
Yeah.
It'd be a hell of a cross-country drive. I would
I'd
Yes, I'd probably have to put him out. I'd have to put him out. Get out my car, Walter. I've done that before. Not to Walter mostly, but to just people in general. Get out my car. Just go. Get out. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. All right. Last question. You're granted a 24-hour ability to discover the real identities of people leaving nasty, mean-spirited reviews of your books that you know they never read. How do you use this new information?
Oh, and we think about this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
You know what? I wouldn't do anything public. I'd be very nasty and sneaky, and I'd probably send anonymous nasty notes to them about like maybe write their obituaries. Something that's like, well, what the hell is that about? So I just to get in their minds, it's like, well, maybe I shouldn't take that bus because in my obituary. So I do something sneaky and devious, and I get to write, it's a superpower. I do something like that, like really bothersome notes that I get their address and their address. I find their address because nothing's worse than written actual. Yeah. And I mail them things. Yeah, I do.
That's beautiful.
Our judges have given you a perfect score in the lightning round. One of our few perfect scores.
Yes, true.
Very true.
Yes.
But Rachel, we have enjoyed the heck out of this conversation. This is a tremendous book. I hope everybody reads it, and I hope everybody buys your backlist so I can read more about Lou.
You bet.
And possibly
yes.
So if you're watching, buy those books so her publishers complain about it. But buy this book first.
Yes, please.
It will trick you. It will fool you. If you know the ending, you're lying, because I'm pretty good at that, and I didn't know what the hell was happening.
Yay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, it was wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much.
This was really enjoyable. Great questions.
Yay. Cheers to you.
Cheers.
Had a hell of a time tonight speaking with Rachel Howzell Hall about these toxic things, as well as a number of other subjects. Just a tremendous interview. She's a tremendous lady. Go out and buy this book and buy her backlog too, because there's a couple of characters that I want to see again. Join us every Monday on the Crew Reviews for another terrific discussion. You never know what you're going to get, but you know it's going to be great. We'll see you next time.
Absolutely. Salute.
And we're out.
That's how we do it.
Awesome.